Hello, peoples. It's time. We're back again for our bi-weekly show. I apologize for the lateness of getting the show running. I'm not going to go into it right now, but yeah, was not expected. Tonight we've got some very special guests. A couple of new guys. At least one, past guest who's doing duty as how should I put this, co-host tonight. So I'm gonna go ahead and introduce him first. Adam, say hi, man.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing? I am Adam Sink. I am happy to be here. I am the co-host of Full Metal RPG, and it is a pleasure to be here doing co-host duties on Tempest Tenebrarum.
I appreciate it. No doubt, no doubt. And then, of course, we've got Brendan. Say hi, Brendan.
Hello. How's everybody doing tonight?
Great. And Brendan's another host of Full Metal RPG, so it is a Full Metal RPG love fest.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's
and
true. I am on Full Metal RPG. I forgot that for a second.
Well, no, I appreciate him coming in, too, because it was, last minute. Holy shit, what am I supposed to do now? And then, of course, Darling, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. And I am Darling Rose here over from Midnight Express.
Hello, Darling from Midnight Express. It is a pleasure to meet you.
It's just a whole podcast love fest tonight. I love it.
Yeah, I know.
I love it.
Midnight Express.
I'm breaking your stride though with the other RPG.
That's all right. You can get on Full Metal RPG, and then we'll call it all good.
Absolutely, man. I've been hoping since I've been doing this show, somebody to invite me on to another show. I'm no, just not a. I just to say that I'm not necessarily as up to a lot of the trouble that you guys get into. But I'd be more than happy to join you guys at some point on one of your shows.
Cool, sounds good.
So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're talking Specters. Okay?
Specters, the
yeah.
dark reflections of the Wraith world.
I'll be honest, man. Wraith don't get enough love, man. Doesn't give nowhere near enough love.
It's a tough game, and it's hard to run. It's hard to play. It's really
it's hard to read sometimes. I mean, my God.
Yeah, there are some books that are really dry.
Oh,
it's a brutal game.
It's definitely called the Big Gray Book of Depressing for a reason.
Oh, for sure. I have tried numerous times to run Wraith, and my particular style of running Wraith seems to put people off. It's a dark game, and it's not a lot of fun sometimes.
Well,
yeah, but have you tried to run it recently? I mean, some of the problems that you ran into were like a long time ago, and I think the people that we were playing with just had different tastes back then.
I have not tried to run it recently, and the only reason is because the groups that I tend to run for these days tend to be very fantasy role playing aspected. So Wraith is the antipode of that, right? Like you're not a champion, you're not a hero, and you're probably going to meet a miserable end.
So
unless you're playing like Doomslayers and you're doing like a whole labyrinth dungeon crawl, then hey,
maybe. But even those guys tend to meet dark ends, right? Like Doomslayers don't tend to have a very happy path. It's not like I get very, very heroic and I'm a champion. I see and experience horrible things, and it causes my shadow to well up within me and overwhelm me.
I don't know. Anacreons tend to have a really shitty end of the stick, too, just saying.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of anyone in the Wraith Society who doesn't have
a... I mean, isn't that sort of the point? I mean, it's the Oblivion, right?
Right, it really is, and as you're fond of pointing out, Brendan, the game was originally called Hell.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I think
it's very hellish.
Okay. Well, no, I can feel it. I can feel it. So, as is standard for the show, Brother Adam, since you're co-hosting with us tonight,
Sure.
I want you to come. Do you have a specific question for the other two guests?
Question me, Adam.
So there's a book called Dark Reflection Specters, and the premise of that book is it is a guide or a handbook to allow you to play specters. Should you be allowed to play specters?
Well, yeah. I mean, my immediate response is, of course, you should be allowed to. Of course.
Would you ever run a specter game?
See, that's the real question, right?
Because if you're saying I'm allowed to, but I would never do it, is there value in that book?
Well, I mean, the thing is as a GM, is that something that you want to get into, you know? And I think that it's cool that it's there for the people who want it.
I'm not right. Honest, dude.
If it's what I want.
Some of the darkest themes can actually be some fun stuff.
No, you're right, and that's the other thing is, it's not really up to the GM, right? Like if you're a GM and you want to run a game that no one wants to play, it doesn't add value. It's a player question. Are there players who want to play specters? And I guess my question to them is, why do you want to do that?
So I can fuck with the rest of the people in the game? That seems to be about right.
Well, you can do that in core Wraith, though, as the shadow. Oh, sorry. What was that?
I definitely know some people who would do that, who would play Spectre, but I also think that it also depends on how you're playing. If you're playing, like, say, an online chat, there's lots of groups of people. You can get small, 2 or 3 players, and they're like, hey, you guys want to play Spectre? I'll run you guys, and we're going to go mess with these guys. And run a game through there. Say, hey, I've got some people who want to play Wraith. Do you mind if they, if we join your game briefly? And, there we go.
And then everything slides downhill from there.
Well, I mean, that is an interesting option that didn't exist like 20 years ago when this book was like new or whatever, So it does breathe a new life into the material within that context, and that's definitely a good idea. I'm a big fan of like cross group skullduggery personally. I love building that sort of thing. That stuff's great. And
so what does Spectres offer that Shadow Guiding doesn't? Because in Wraith you have the opportunity to play another character Shadow, his dark side. In Spectres you're embodying the dark side, and then someone takes on your psyche. Your hopeful, positive side.
Yeah, because you get to run the show. That's the appeal of it. You get to take over for a while.
I was talking to a friend about it earlier when he came by, and he was asking about tonight's show, and I was like, "This is one of the few splats that will allow you to use the secondary player to play your shadow." And to be really dicky if you wanted to be. Because most of the shadows are bad.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're
really
they're
bad.
Your specter before it becomes a specter, right?
Yeah.
And your psyche is your higher self. And your psyche, it's expressly kind of spelled out in the specter book, is not supposed to be manipulative. Is not supposed to be, a jerk. It's supposed to lead you into the light. It's supposed to be your higher self.
It's more tempting and cajoling if you get the right person who can play the manipulation part of it.
Right.
Exactly. No, exactly. That's what I was trying to explain to Eric. I was like, he's not just there to fuck with you. He's gonna try and get you to fulfill the obligations that you feel you need to take care of, as far as the shadow.
Right.
It's
and the psyche too. The psyche is supposed to be kind of, from what I understand, that loving part of yourself, right? It's not trying to trick you. The specter is always trying to trick you. The specter is always trying to get you to do the bad thing. The psyche wants you to fulfill your higher duty, and with the limited lifespan of specters, because they are in Oblivion, and Oblivion has a constant drag upon them, and it's always pulling them down. It's always trying to destroy them. And Doomslayers even gets into it. There's 100, Mortrites, and of those 100 Mortrites, some small percentage of them, 10%, become Nephrax, And of that 10%, some 10% becomes the next stage of the evolution, and so on and so on. And that's really kind of the crux of Specters, is you're a very limited lifespan. You're a dark character. You're evil. You're full of all these negative, these dark passions. They call them dark passions. I wish they had found a different term
better
for
word
it, but,
for them. Yeah,
right. And that's kind of a theme, is it's dark passions, dark Arcanoi, and all these other things. But
it's dark. It's the same,
right, it's
only
dark. Yeah, it's dialed up to 11, and that's the thing about it, is
that's
it's
changeling, dude. I think you got the wrong splat.
Oh no! Oh, no.
You know, you're a bad dude, and what does that mean? How does that impact the way you interact with the world? How does that impact the way you interact with other wraiths, right? Because you start at a doppelganger where you can pass as a wraith, but as you progress in the Spectre hierarchy without falling to oblivion completely, you become more and more
twisted. You don't necessarily have to start out as a doppelganger. Those are just the most fun.
Right, you're right. You can
Yeah.
Right, you can become one of the other things. You can be one of the children that's immediately sucked into oblivion. You can become a shade.
Yeah.
There's the Mortrites who immediately become striplings. Striplings are the children, and then Mortrites are the ones who just immediately become Specters. They're kind of the lowest rung on the ladder, right? They die and they immediately give into oblivion.
That's gotta suck, you know?
Yeah, well, there's that whole hierarchy. There's the hierarchy of the...
Yeah, it's a weird system because it's different from the rest of Wraith and their hierarchy and how they die. But the Spectres get a caste instead, and being, which was very vague in the book as to what that was. But yeah, it's like the same but different, and trying to wrap your brain around that is tricky.
It is, and I would say if you want to play Wraith, if you want to explore Specters, you know, aside from the Wraith core, the two books you really need are Doomslayers into the Labyrinth and Dark Reflection Specters. And I would read Dark Reflection Specters first, and then I would read Doomslayers into the Labyrinth, because it came out later and it kind of refined on some of the concepts in Specters.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think Spectre's got enough page count, honestly. When I read the book, it felt... I mean, this is back in the 90s or whatever. When I read it, it felt like it was more of an art book. You know,
yes.
Like it kind of wanted you to sit there being creeped out and sad or something.
It's less than 70 pages. It's really short compared to something like Fomori or Book of the Worm or the Guide to the Sabbath.
Buried Secrets. Yeah. That one's one of my favorites.
Yeah, or Dirty Secrets of the Black Hand.
That kind of page count is going to be is closer to a clan book, and think how much territory they're trying to cover there in such a limited amount of space. You know?
Right, which Doomslayers helps a lot with because it fills in a lot of the gaps.
No, I would start with Doomslayers, or not Doomslayers, with Specters because it came first, but then I would go into, for the core book, I wouldn't pick first edition Wraith. I'd pick second edition. Because that refined it a bit more in their
elaborate, please.
Spectre section. In their
we got plenty of time, so elaborate your ass off.
Okay. Well, in second edition, they elaborated with some of the refinements a bit more on Specters, specifically in their caste system, in being, in the mechanics of fighting, if you're fighting against Specters. So they refined a bit more. You know, if you're taking Specters, it's raw. And Specters is trying to build on first edition to flesh something out. If you go from Specters to second edition Wraith core book, it fleshes things out just a little bit more, at least in terms of interaction and crossover, if you're going to use that. And then you get into the Doomslayers, which comes later, like you said, which elaborates even more on the setting that they're living in. So I think I would go in that progression of just how much information you're going to use for your Specters game, and stick with second edition instead of going with first edition Wraith. Because there's just not a whole lot given there from the very beginning.
Yeah, that's honestly, a good call out.
I just feel like if we're talking about, I mean, maybe this is just me, maybe this will be controversial, but I feel like if we're talking about Wraith, we're talking about second edition Wraith. I mean, it was just such a massive improvement upon the first edition, and it was such a much more comprehensive and better and playable book / game that I always just assume we're talking about second when we talk about Wraith at this point.
Okay, I get you.
Are there people who still play first? They're like, no,
not that I know of.
Out that first edition book.
Because I'll be honest, we brought up Wraith on more than one occasion now, and first edition doesn't even register.
I know
it was a cool
people
book.
Who are like those first edition purists, and it's like, oh, we liked it better when it didn't have everything so like defined, and it's like, yeah, but then there's stuff that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, here's the
I
thing.
try and specify just because, again, I'm from the Midnight Express angle, which, you know, a lot of hell, we're called Midnight Express, so we definitely come from the Wraith Oblivion kind of fandom over here, and there are some that, you know, they like their glow-in-the-dark cover book.
You do know what the Latin translation for our show is, right?
Yeah.
Which I came up with that on the fly, and it worked out really well.
I was gonna name my Kindle that.
You should just because you should, and I would just be honored as shit if you would.
I mean, I was trying to go all World of Darkness, and I'm like, oh, this is taken. I thought I was so clever.
I don't know. I was a comparative religion major, so of course I was going to come up with something really cool and not in English. So, okay, guys. So we're gonna. I'm gonna see if I can get us to go through some of these without because technically speaking, Specters isn't gonna fill 2 hours, or 2 hours. So we've got some of these other, really cool, like doppelgangers. Talk to us about those. Who wants to jump in?
Sure. So doppelgangers are kind of when you're a wraith and you get converted to a specter. Doppelgangers are where you start. You were a wraith. You lived as a wraith for a time. You become a doppelganger. Doppelgangers are still able to pass as wraiths. They're still able to kind of infiltrate Stygia and the wraith society. And so they're the default state, right? You go in and you're able to interact with the larger wraith world.
And please don't take this the wrong way, but I believe the correct pronunciation is Stygia.
No, Stygia. All right, no problem. So Stygia.
I'm trying not. I wasn't.
No, you're good. I read words and I don't know how to pronounce them. So I had the same problem with like Bodhisattva or
Simishe.
Kindred of the East. It's I read them and I try to suss out how to pronounce it. It doesn't always come out the way in my head that it should be. But right, so you have the doppelgangers, and they're the guys who are kind of doing the grunt work of the specters, right? Because shades are these horrible abominations that have been twisted by Oblivion, and they're just monstrous and bestial and everything else. They may not even have a sentience. You've got the Nephrax, and they're the guys who have spent so long in Oblivion, they've been twisted by it. They've been, kind of converted into the next level of specter. And the doppelganger is just, hey, I was a wraith. I gave in to my shadow. My shadow took over. Now I'm a doppelganger. Now I'm trying to drag down anyone else I can into Oblivion with me.
Especially since the fourth, the Great Maelstrom.
Right.
The shit went sideways during that time period in a big fucking hurry.
Right. And when Charon, he disappeared, it caused a lot of upheaval in Wraith society.
Yeah.
And so specters have been resurgent. They become more powerful. Oblivion is coming. Gehenna is coming. The awakening is coming. The apocalypse is coming. Right? All of these horrible things are kind of off on the horizon. They're all due any time now.
Yeah. So everybody keep looking at your watch.
Right, and that's the thing. It's when you get Ends of Empire, it does a lot of crossover with mage and vampire specifically.
Enoch is supposed to have been hidden in Stygia.
It's hidden in the Shadowlands, and it's and then you had Xerxes Jones, who was this void engineer, and he drops a relic nuke into the labyrinth.
Yeah, cracks the foundation, and then all shit goes sideways.
Right, because there's this. Yeah, then you get Demon, right? Demon comes out of that, but there's the Venus Stair, right? That's the spine of the labyrinth. That is the backbone that runs through it. That's where the Neverborn and the Onceborn, they all kind of collect,
and then Charon disappears, and the shit goes. I just, oddly enough, there seems to be a lot more of a story going on than, say, Vampire. I mean, there's a lot of crazy shit going on there too, don't get me wrong, but in Wraith it just seems like there's a bit more solidity of, okay, this is what's happening, what do you do about it, kind of thing. Especially since
Perhaps.
I
would say that they got to the meta plot stuff in Wraith faster than they got to it in any of the other lines, but that's just because they were killing them off. The line knew that it had to go away, and so they canceled them, and they were like, look, we got to crush out a bunch of years worth of storyline that we thought we had way more time to develop.
Yeah, because Orpheus was launched before the end of White Wolf.
Yeah.
Right.
And most of the other Time of Judgment books, or whatever you want to call them, were part of that
Gehenna,
launch.
the Knights of Prophecy, Time of the Thin Blood, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and so you had that, and then you had that idea of, is the Emperor of the Kingdom of Jade one of the Yomi kings? Is he just a Wraith? What's going on over there? He launches an invasion of Stygia.
And then you've got the Ebony Kingdom, which doesn't seem to fit in as well as it should have, I guess.
And they kind of like gloss over any other kingdoms that might have been like in development, just cause. I mean, that's the great tragedy, is that we never got a revised edition. They killed off the system.
Yeah. Towards the end there of the original White Wolf, they were throwing stuff out as quick as they could. And I'm not exactly sure what their reasoning behind trying, I guess, money maybe?
Production treadmill, yeah. They had to make money in order to make more things to make money.
Yeah, okay.
It just burned out
I think they were just trying to wrap it up. Yeah.
But
they were trying to wrap it up.
Was an underperformer.
Yeah.
That's true.
Wraith had never met expectations for performance, and they had done a lot of different marketing angles for it. And so it wasn't Demon that followed up Wraith, it was that Hunter the Reckoning that had all those.
Yeah.
Oh, the Wraiths are coming out of Stygia and they're fucking turning into zombies and all this other shit, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but they got a video game out of it, so.
Yeah. No, they did. That was a much better selling game than Wraith ever was, which on some level to me was kind of like a crummy test of the weather, I was like, really? That's just me.
I've actually got a copy of that game.
I played it on GameCube.
And a straight up old Xbox, no doubt. And I've never played it much further past when you've got to kill the Santa Claus crazy person, But I think there's one more book that they kind of tacked on at the end that I am also extremely fond of, is Mummy the Resurrection. I do.
You're a big fan of that game, huh?
I'm actually very fond of that one.
That's kind of interesting.
Really,
it did the odd thing where it jumped systems, but yeah.
Yeah, because it was one of the few that you could cross over with any other splat White Wolf put out. Anyone, because sometimes it's not always easy, even though they all use the same dot system and so on and so forth. But, throwing all of these splats together in one giant game was never really going to be an option. But Mummies, on the other hand, can pop up in any splat. And most of the time can stomp the absolute ever-loving shit out of anything they can think of in those particular splats. I always thought that the Mummies were way OP.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, the Mummy's kind of like... Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was to say, like, how they first used Wraith kind of like underpinning every other system, and even through second edition, it's mentioning like crossover rules and everything, and mentioning other systems. But then you get to Mummy, and it's like, no, we need something physical, and only Risen is like a physical presence in the skin lines, besides skin writing, but that's temporary.
Yeah.
So, like, once they grabbed on Risen, I think Risen was one of their better selling books for Wraith, just because it gave players that opportunity. I mean,
yeah,
it
Risen
totally
was
ripped off the Crow, but
it did. It was advertised heavily in the other books as well as,
yeah.
hey, here's how you cross over Wraith with your vampire
Everything.
game.
So I think that's the direction they kind of like took that cue from that particular splat to go with Mummy. It's like, well, where can we do that? Oh, hey, this vampire book, and just it blossomed from there.
Yeah, well, Wraith it was one of the other ones that will cross over rather well if you do it right. As long as you ain't got no frickin' Giovanni in there, you're okay. But
well, that was kind of the thing, right? Like Wraith, you have Silent Striders, you have Giovanni, you have the Euthanatos, you have a splat in every other game line that is capable of communicating with Wraiths.
But the Giovanni don't communicate, they use.
They enslave.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, to a certain extent, they
didn't mention
can communicate with them if they wanted to.
Tremere and Lasombra too, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Keep talking, guys. I need to run to get more water. So,
oh, no problem.
All right. So, Betty White.
But no, it's not. You had mediums, and you had, you had these other archetypes that could communicate with the dead, sorcerers, and those sorts of things. And you've always had this idea of zombies and voodoo and those sorts of things, and those naturally kind of coincide with Wraith. Everybody.
I mean, even Hunter had a touch of that if you get zombies involved.
Yeah, it did. It had the Wraiths rise up, they re-inhabit their bodies, they come out. That was kind of the start of the Hunter line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was never very familiar with Hunter, so I'll lean on you guys to help. But
neither was either. Yeah, I'll be
honest. I didn't run or play Hunter, but I knew a guy who did, and he was obsessive with it for a while.
Hunters as NPCs seem to work out okay. Society of Leopold and all that crazy ass bullshit. But I'd never seen them as player characters.
I think I liked the Hunter Vigil version better. When I heard Hunter was going to be a new system, I was so excited and I had all these ideas. And then it turned out completely different from that, and I didn't like it. But then I, wait around, New World of Darkness came along, and Hunter the Vigil, like, totally sucked all those ideas that I had, for, like, family lines and, like a Van Helsing type of thing.
Vigil is great because it has a progression path, right?
Yeah. And so
where you can... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was like, Vigil was the Hunter Reckoning I always wanted. And there's actually a book for interchanging them, to use Vigil in Classic World of Darkness and to use Reckoning in New World of Darkness. So I thought that was neat.
They seem to be the only ones that are opposed to every single other splat, period.
Yeah. But without having powers of their own.
True faith, etc.
Yeah, but they can become, slashers, which I thought was an interesting idea. Because you can start playing Hunter, and you can evolve, and you can become a slasher as your kind of your passions or whatever overtake you, and you just start hunting for the thrill of it.
Yeah, and not necessarily the things you're supposed to be hunting.
Right. Yeah, and that was always kind of what I thought was interesting about Hunter the Vigil, that Hunter the Reckoning didn't have. Hunter the Reckoning was, I've got a crowbar and it does aggravated damage. Hunter the Vigil was... that was the guy that...
I have the crowbar of truth faith.
Well, that was the guy that we played with. He was, you can have a crowbar. It does aggravated damage. It's amazing. I was like, okay, well, I mean, why is it amazing other than it does ag damage?
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of stuff that does ag, man. But
right, and that was the thing.
Some better than others.
It was just, I'm excited because I can murder shit, whereas Hunter the Vigil is just, hey, if you go on that tangent, if you go down that murder path, you're not going to be happy at the end of it. It's going to end poorly for you.
I'll be honest, man. From what I know about Hunter, judges seem to be about the most balanced and tolerant of the whole craziness, but because they want to be sure before they start bashing people's heads in with the crowbar of true faith.
Yeah, unawakened euthanatory. I mean, that's what they always struck me as.
Okay.
It's like they're just doing what they think is the right thing to do, but the ends justifies the means.
By the way, New Wave
justifies the ends.
By the way, New Wave says, "Oh yeah, the slasher book I heard was pretty good."
It's amazing. If you do not have the slasher book, go get the slasher book. I will never not recommend that book to anyone. It should be because it's such a good book. If you don't have it, go get it. Because I love that book so much. Yeah, Brendan, you love that book too.
Yeah,
I wonder how you would use that against specters.
I think if you're a victim of slasher, you may just become a specter.
The New World of Darkness stuff always left the Wraith stuff to be pretty ambiguous. It's actually kind of interesting because the game that probably aligns with the Wraith material the most, which is Geist, actually has a countervailing underworld system and ghost system to the Ghost book that they put out, really sort of accentuating the toolboxy kind of nature of the way that the NWAD kind of works, and then that game, I mean, right away they attacked the idea that these guys have to be in the physical world, and then they just kind of gave them missions that required them to go down into the underworld, which I thought. I mean, I think that also works very well in Orpheus.
It's harder for the Specters to actually, how should I put this?
Manifest.
Cross the veil.
It can be. Yeah, I would say if you're looking for a good kind of Spectre story, right? You want to run something with a Spectre in it as the antagonist or the villain. The Terrifying Tale of James Magnus is a good Spectre story, right?
Which is NWAD.
Right, which is NWAD, but he's ruled by his dark passions. He is this creature who gave himself over to terrorizing others, and he continues to act out those desires even in death. And, it's just a really good story. It's well done, and it's very flavorful, and I like it a lot.
Far and away one of the best things that's ever been written, I think, as a module for White Wolf in general, but specifically for NWAD. I mean, it's just that's so choice.
Hold on, sorry, I had to go get another book.
No, you're all good.
I had to go get another book because we started talking fiction. Dark Kingdoms is
of Jade or not?
No, Dark Kingdoms. The actual
a fiction book.
Yeah,
it was a short story comp, right? It was an anthology.
Yeah, I haven't read that one.
Well, it's not a short story, dude, because we're talking 400 plus pages.
Oh, but it's all in one continuity?
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. I thought that was one of those.
No,
I think that's the other one.
Because this was my introduction to Wraiths, Specters, Black Spiral Dancers. I mean, pretty much any part of the World of Darkness that, I thought was kind of cool, they popped up within this particular book. And I was like, wow, I love this. This is awesome. And that's one I found out I mentioned earlier is that, Anacreons have a, really hard time of it in general. And one of the other things is, and we will come up to it. Now, I was going to ask a question since I didn't know the actual answer to it. Can you capture specters and then put it force them into the soul forges?
Yes, you can capture specters. They're made of plasm or corpus like any other wraith. So in theory, you can stick them into the soul forges. There's a system for it in Doomslayers Into the Labyrinth. What they tend to do is when they capture them, they force them to teach them Dark Arcana Y in exchange for releasing them, or they just destroy them outright.
Okay. Because the soul forges seemed like one of the most hideous things about Stygia was that, if the newly dead coming out of the call were not capable of actually doing it themselves, having somebody come along, find them, and then pulling them out of the call themselves. And I was like, okay, and then you make them into screaming torches. Okay, that sounds like fun. But I've always wondered just exactly, about specters, whether they would make good oboli or torches or whatever.
Well, I mean, you could probably take that and turn it into a story, right? I mean, that'd be worth exploring inside the game. I mean, the rule itself is obviously like obscure to the point that like I don't think it really affect how the players played. And if you wanted to tell a cool story about it, like the player characters coming into possession of like these cursed kind of coins, or a building that's been like wrought out of specters or something.
Yeah.
Then that's fun.
Could be a lot of fun, dude.
At that point.
Listen, but how would you tell the difference? Oboli scream regardless of whether or not they're, good souls or bad, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, what if you were telling a haunted house story inside of a ghost story,
Ooh, that could be fun. No, that could be fun.
I say, so I was never clear on how they made soul steel.
What I do know about it is that it's more of the better the quality of the soul makes the better quality of the soul steel.
Right. So there's ore that they have to mine out of the Venus Stair, which is part of the labyrinth.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to mix.
A lot of brave dudes that got to go down in there.
Right, that's what Doomslayers is about. So you have to face all these specters, then you have to go down into the Venus Stair, you have to mine this ore, and then you have to mix it with souls, and that is how you get soul steel. So that's...
It doesn't specify that it can't be specters.
It doesn't.
Does
and specters, like I said, are corpus, right? They're corporeal. Yeah. They have a form. So in theory, you could bind them together. I guess the question is, if you bind this malignant entity into your sword or whatever it is, what would be as a GM, I would be interested in exploring, what would be the effects of that? How would that alter the way it functions? How would that... Because it's going to try to corrupt you as a wraith.
Yes.
And so,
that
how
like
would it change?
Fun.
It does sound like fun until it doesn't,
Yeah.
Well, but that's Wraith, right?
Yeah, I get you.
I was like, that sounds like a plot point to me.
Yeah, I feel you now. Now that you're talking, yeah, I can do that. It's just there's a lot of Wraith that I get such a big kick out of because it is so completely different than werewolf or vampire. It really is. There's a lot of crazy shit going on in the Shadowlands. It really is.
One of the things that I mention a lot in any of the podcasts for the Midnight Express is that I love Wraith because of you can mix many eras. You can mix many different types of technology.
Anybody who's ever died, pretty much, yeah.
Anything that's ever been destroyed. You get to mix all that together and, like you said, turn the dial up to 11 and see what happens. And see what your players do.
Yeah, I view I tend to view Wraith Cities as very Art Deco, which may kind of belie what my my interpretation of them. But yeah, there's definitely this aesthetic to it, right? There's this view of the world and kind of how it progresses and how things evolve.
And how
you've got this incredible...
and how this world has a direct impact of what's going on in Stygia.
Right, and so you've got this incredible darkness to it. It cranks it up a little bit. It makes it just that much more twisted than it was, but viewed through the lens of the past, because it's not concerned with what's going on right now necessarily. Right, we're all still alive right now, but it's the people who pass on before who are deciding the current state of Stygia. So it's always just a little bit behind. Well, like current race society is probably like 1960s, 1970s in terms of where it's at.
Okay, the fourth great maelstrom was triggered by... I could look it up, but I was hoping one of y'all would know.
I do not remember that. So a lot of the maelstroms are triggered by these horrible events, right? Like the bombs falling on Hiroshima
and Nagasaki. That's the third great maelstrom.
Right, and so you have all of these maelstroms where there's this pivotal event in human history where that's what causes the break. That's what causes it to snap. This mass loss of human life. The world changed fundamentally, and now there's another maelstrom.
But it has to be something super devastating.
It does. It has to be something. It has to be just this shift, this global shift that causes everything to change.
The Holocaust, the first. Well, no, I think the Holocaust didn't actually trigger.
Right.
One.
So the fourth great maelstrom was caused by the First World War and the Spanish flu.
Okay, 1914 through 1919.
1916 to 1929.
Okay.
And then I think the fifth great maelstrom was the
Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Right. That was the superstorm that happened within the Shadowlands when World War II was heading to its end around 1945 when the bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
And then there was, after that, there's supposed to be a sixth one that was triggered by the
Week of Nightmares.
Yes.
Right. That's the one when Ravana rose in India, the antediluvian of the Ravenous clan.
Hazimel.
Right. And the Week of Nightmares struck, and they dropped all those bombs, and that's when Xerxes Jones dropped the spirit nuke into the labyrinth, and a bunch of horrible things happened, and Enoch was destroyed.
And I'm not allowed to say that word on the air. I'm sorry, my bad. But the technocrats, the destruction, turning the solar mirrors onto Hazimel.
Right.
To end his bullshit.
Right, yeah. And so that was kind of like the crazy period where they just started making stuff up on their own.
I know, right? And I was like, y'all, really? Yeah. Can you... Come on, y'all.
Yeah. That's really dumb for real. But, that was the period. That was what caused the sixth great maelstrom.
Okay.
The Mecco.
But it didn't trigger all the other horrible nasties like Gehenna and, the Week of Nightmares. We've got a show coming up on that, by the way. Both, I think, I don't know if it's Brandon who's doing that show or not. I know Adam's doing tonight, and he really talked you into this. And dude, I appreciate your time. I truly do.
Man.
But we've got the let's see, what is it? Hold on. No, that's Requiem. Shit, I didn't go down far enough. We've got the Knights of Prophecy coming up on September 4th, and we're going to cover all of that. And
if you need me, let me know. So.
Dude, you are welcome whenever the hell you want to come on. Okay? I am never going to turn you down. I'll
Fair
have
enough.
6 people in the channel before I do that.
It's like the opposite of high school.
It is. And I mean, back in high school, we used to play D&D in the cafeteria. We got laughed at. I told them, fuck you. We're having fun. Leave us alone. Basically. And this was, okay, granted, before White Wolf. But I really, 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 and yeah, okay, I just got called out. I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to say the T word, and she's going to get mad at me if I do it again, so we're not going to do it again.
The technocrats. You're not allowed to say technocracy or technocrats.
You're not helping. You're not helping me. She's going to hurt me, man.
Am I not allowed to say them too? I don't know.
And by the way, back a little ways, she posted, behold, the crowbar of true faith. It is powered by the God of the hardware store.
Yeah, well, not wrong. And it was pretty ludicrous.
That's awesome.
But yeah,
though.
I love the technocracy. That's a whole nother conversation. I will defend the technocracy till the end.
COPD.
Don't die over there. We can't have you turning into a specter.
No, it's the COPD, man. It's been kicking in pretty hard lately.
Yeah, Brendan will tell you all about my love of the technocracy. I have loved those guys forever. I think they're amazing.
I'm going to be honest, dude. Most of the time when somebody says that word, something happens to the stream.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought it was Weaver.
Uh-oh. Yeah. That's why she's a little bit... even Sabrina knows what's up with that. It is a cursed word.
Can I say T-crats?
That'll work.
All right, T-crats. T-crats in the house.
That'll work. We can work with that.
Much love to the NWO.
Oh my God. You should not... I'm just glad you weren't here for the first T-crap show. You just... oh, no, it was bad.
It was a disaster.
It was a
total
complete
disaster.
No, we had to redo the show.
Oof.
I'm dead fucking serious. We had to redo the show. And it took, and I couldn't even get a couple of, I couldn't get our second guest back again for that show because they had, something going on, some con or something. And I'm like, oh, damn. Because most of what happened during that first show was awesome. Oh my God, it was a great, great show until the shit went sideways.
Right, well, we're using technology, so if you're negging the T-crats, they're probably going to shut you down.
Exactly. Right. Which is what these people, I know.
Don't worry, I made some, offerings to Weaver.
Okay.
There you go.
Weaver should show up the other side.
But, yeah, even the Weavers fucked us on more than one occasion. Just saying.
You got to make your peace. You got to make your peace with Agent Johnson.
Shout out to Project Glasswalker and
okay.
Player.
I think are too busy trying to.
I got some favors to call in.
Elon Musk is he is the least sedate of the T-crats.
I'm feeling Elon's got something to do with this. Just
he may.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Shades.
Sure. Shades. Yes, let's talk about Shades.
Who wants to go? Shades. Because this isn't, I don't think there's a good guy, period, in the world of darkness. But some are less bad than others. And Shades seem to be, as far as Specters are concerned, don't seem to be as horrible as some of the other versions of that particular group.
That's interesting. Why do you feel that way?
Yeah, agreed.
Well,
because they're like as far as I'm concerned, they're the absolute worst.
True, but they actually do what I expect a Shade to do, or Spectre to do. They're the most typical of the actual. Listen, it wouldn't be that damn hard to spot a Shade, as opposed to some of the other versions of the Specters.
Yeah,
just
truth
to
in
say.
advertising kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
right, but I mean, to quote the text, to do the exegesis, it's their darkly passionate warriors, Oblivion's staunchest defenders, and the most fell champions. And however fearless and mighty shades may be in battle, they aren't very suitable for other uses. They're essentially monsters.
Cannon fodder.
Right, they lack sentience.
Like drones, right? Like they're not really playable. Didn't it
right,
say
they
in the
don't
book
have
that they're not
sentience.
playable?
Yeah, they don't. They don't have sentience. It specifically spells out that they're not necessarily sentient. They're just
pure NPC.
Right. They're like the cave troll, right? Like they show up and they start wrecking shop, and they don't necessarily care about how or why. They're just there.
They have a cave troll.
Yeah, they're just there to inflict suffering on others. And that's kind of the thing of Specters.
I would kind of use them slightly smart, because that's scarier.
What?
Slightly
Yes.
smart.
Right,
I mean,
but that's
at least
Nephrax.
enough to strategize in how to get you.
Right, but that's Nephrax. Nephrax control the monsters. Shades are just the monsters.
We haven't gotten there yet. No, but I get what you're saying. It's. I just always thought if you can identify a bad guy just by looking at a bad guy, it actually makes them easier to deal with.
Right, but are they bad guys or are they tragic figures?
I'm pretty sure they're bad guys.
Because, the thing about Oblivion is Oblivion corrupts everything it touches.
Yes, it does.
It doesn't start out a shade. It goes through a progression. And it's just dragged ever downward by the pull of Oblivion. And so that's the question is, if you're sucked into this maelstrom, if you're sucked into this vortex, when you come out the other side, you're ultimately changed. You're ultimately this horrifying beast. Was it your fault that happened, or was it just a series of tragic circumstances?
I think it has to do with their initial, I don't want to say,
fall from grace, or their descent into oblivion.
Yeah, the reason they went where they went was because they were really fucked up in general prior to that.
Right, but some wraiths just happen to get caught in a maelstrom, or they happen to get caught in the tempest, or they happen to get caught wherever, and they get sucked into oblivion, not necessarily of their own accord. And they may become a shade. It may just be that oblivion pulls them into that, and that's what they end up being. And if you're an unfortunate victim of circumstance like that, is that your fault, or is that just a thing that happened to you? Can you sympathize with them at all? Is there ever, and I think that's kind of an interesting idea, is you can have shades who are obviously horrible, ravening monsters, and they were serial killers in life, and okay, fine. But you can just as easily have a guy who was just a banker. He loved his wife, he loved his kids. He crossed over.
And he crossed over and went.
He got sucked into the
sideways,
tempest.
yeah.
Now he's a shade. And he's constantly leaking bloody tears from his empty eye sockets.
Okay.
Is that his fault?
No, that is not his fault. But I get the impression from the shades was that they went there of their own volition, not because they got sucked in.
Right, and that may be the case for the majority of them, but can you turn that on its head? Can you make a story out of that?
I think that's one of the central questions that Wraith is trying to ask you. Is it says that could be me, right?
Right.
I mean and there's actually a force in the game that is constantly driving you to become like that. So it's really a game that's designed to provoke a lot of empathy, because you're just basically a couple bad days away from becoming the thing that you are frightened of, or the thing that you hate.
Right, exactly, and that's a good call out. It's that Joker idea. That whole, are you one bad day away from becoming
this crazy person?
This crazy person, right? And that's Wraith. That's the Oblivion. That's the shadows. Is you die and you love your wife and you love your family, and then your wife remarries and your kids start calling this new guy dad. What does that do to you?
What's the phrase I was thinking of? Then you die and then it gets worse.
Right. Yeah, like falling down, like you were saying.
Yeah.
You're just one bad day. You look around and you go, when did I become the bad guy?
And you've got a bat in your hand and someone's cowering in the corner and you're like, I just wanted a fucking snow globe.
Right, yeah. I just wanted the hamburger that looks like it does.
No,
on the
girl,
menu.
that's awesome. That's a great one.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay,
Yeah,
I feel
I
that.
love that movie. That's
Right.
definitely one of those ones. I don't know if it was cited in the Wraith 20, like at the beginning where it tells you like media.
Did we get funding for Wraith 20?
I hope so. I
Funding?
backed it, so
Did we?
as far as I know, it's
Oh
coming.
hell yeah! It's
Almost
still
done.
we're
And
still
then
waiting.
are
Yeah.
we gonna
for
get
it.
a Wraith? Are we gonna get a Wraith 5 though? That's the question.
Ah, yeah.
They've said that they aren't really interested in it right now.
Probably
Oh,
not. Yeah,
whatever.
I can't imagine we'll do it.
Fuck no.
It was a
There's
There's
too
been
much
so much
love
issues
out here.
With V5.
it was a low selling line. It's gonna be a tough
I
sell.
know.
Well, then the fans
We
will
have
just
all
to
the faith in the world, though.
make their demands.
Well, that's the other question: has anyone on this panel ever run a successful Wraith game?
Nope.
Negative.
Nope.
I know people who have.
Okay, so you know people.
know
who
okay,
have.
one of us.
I haven't because I'm not that. I don't have much confidence in myself as a storyteller. I've
'Cause-
dipped my toes into it through other games, like
Well, just get over that
Mage.
because the only way to become a great or a good storyteller, or a competent storyteller, is to run games,
Yes.
and you will
Yeah.
learn more from bad
Yes.
games than you
Yeah.
ever will from good games. So
yeah.
just get out
Which,
there, put
again,
yourself out
I've
there.
dipped
So,
my toes into the Wraith system.
Should we
through
like
other
march on
systems.
Stockholm and tell them we need?
Well, I will say I've run a Wraith game, and I ran it with like deep love and passion, and it made it 3 sessions before every single player approached me separately and said, "This game is too depressing, and I
Yeah.
can't keep playing it
Because
I
they've
don't want
never
to
played
play."
Changeling, but we're not going to go there.
Right, but I like there's that challenge to overcome. There's that hill to overcome where Wraith is not a fun game. You know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's dark and it's horrible and it's depressing and it's sad and it's
Yeah.
dealing with all those things that you leave behind
But
and it's
I would-
about your emotions and that's challenging for people. That's hard to
Yeah.
do.
I would do it. I'd do it, especially if they gave us some LARP rules, man. I
Well, they
would
do have
actually
some.
do it, no problem.
Yeah. There are LARP rules.
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
it
but
was-
I guess the question there I have is what's holding you back? What's holding you back from doing it? Because you can do it.
To be
There's been
truthfully
20
honest,
years, 20 years you've had to do it. What
know,
has kept you from
But
doing
to
it?
be truthfully honest, man,
Mhm.
there ain't a lot of love for Wraith, and I don't know why.
Exactly. It's because it's a hard game to play and
I
it's a hard game to
didn't
run.
have that problem with not having enough. I just didn't have people physically around to game with for a Wraith LARP.
What
'Cause I
she
got
said.
great ideas from someone else did, but I just did not. I've done most of my gaming, to be honest, online chats, and those wind up being like novels. I've got so many scenes saved, but
Oh,
it's
you
still
go,
like
girl.
you got to have the right people to work on it, and it's not that they can't do it. It's just the timing. I can't get 3 people on, even though we're all in the same time zone.
Oh,
We just
jeez.
all have different jobs. I work at like 6 in the morning, my job, and everybody else has got the 9 to 5, or they've got a night job. I just can't get the people on.
To be honest, you're absolutely right. That seems to be. Now, we've been doing this show 2+ years now, and one of the major issues that has popped up is scheduling.
Hmm.
Because, people who want to play Wraith live in fucking New Zealand. Okay? And the people who want to play Vampire live in fucking Germany. So, yeah, it's really difficult to get your scheduling down to where the people who want to play your game, and they're out there. I promise you, they're out there.
Yeah, it's been some lean times in the last like decade or so where, you're just scraping by, and that was before all the 20th anniversary interest got revived, and now there's a lot more people. There's a lot more groups that are out there. There's Facebook groups. All the social media is connecting more people. That's how I wound up on this show. Just Facebook invites. So there's got to be more out there now. But now is the time to start trying to run a Wraith game.
It was Sarah who got you us, right?
Yeah.
So, please, here's the thing. The best way to get word out is shit like this. Mm-hmm. It's these shows. Walking Away from Arcadia, fucking Midnight Express, all these good shows who are out there, if you want to just, enjoy listening about other people playing, that's cool. But what we would like, and I'm going to say this out loud so you motherfuckers get it, not y'all, but the rest of these people, is that you want to play? Tell us you want to play. Give us your time zone. We'll work it out. Okay? We'll try our damnedest.
Work schedule. Yeah. Because that's the other thing interesting, like about playing online. Once you got people and you've got your group together, you can play like 2 or 3 hours every day.
Absolutely.
And it will go fast. Screw keeping track of the XP points after that point.
Yeah.
You'll have a hard time just keeping track of what everybody's doing.
Now, I guess since most of you guys are new, do you know where I started?
Where?
LARPing back in '92.
Okay.
Cool.
University of North Carolina, or UNC, or NC State.
All right.
NC State, and I fell in love that night. And I'm super glad that I was actually recruited by a Tremere as opposed to a fucking Toreador. Because I have issues with Toreador. I do. And I've been dealing with these people for fucking 30 years now. And do you remember the box that's on the side of the BGB, the Big Green Book for Vampire for Bruja? It says, "Does this clan actually do anything?" So but then I wound up a Tremere. And then I worked my way up to a Tremere Archon, working under Carl Schreck. And I was like, okay, this is me. I'm ready for this. This will work for me. And then we get on further on, and I couldn't find anybody to play with. And I've been trying very difficult to make sure that folks find even if I'm not willing to play the game, that particular game, I'm more than happy to try and find somebody to play with. In the chat right now, we've got Sabrina. She is one of my old school World of Warcraft players. But since she's been listening to the show, she's always been a very good friend of mine. And now that she's listening to the show, she wants to play too. But from where she is, it seems to be a bit more difficult for her to find folks to play with, even online. So, I would hope... Oh, yeah, my bad. Star Wars Galaxies. That was where I first met her. My bad.
Yeah,
I feel bad. Huh?
I'm hoping for a renaissance with V5. I think when the books are back in production, when they're in game stores, and they have a community team going and demoing and running games, that we'll have an opportunity to get fresh blood in, right? We'll have an opportunity to get people playing these games again.
There's no doubt, dude. There's no doubt at all.
Right. All right.
And so that's the thing, is they've been out of game stores. They arrogantly kind of... Right, and they arrogantly kind of said, we don't need game stores, we don't need the local scene, everything's going to be done online. And we've kind of seen the results of that over the last 15 years. And And I think getting back into stores and being back involved in the community will hopefully see a resurgence.
I do. I hope. I pray.
I ran a V5 demo just this weekend at a local con for people who, 3 of the players had never played Vampire before. Out of the 5 players I had, they've never played it. They hadn't really had any experience with it. And hopefully that'll start turning around as they start to get these, back on shelves.
As an addendum, Peter Pena, who was on last 2 weeks ago, says, and I quote, books being publicly available again is a big deal, or a huge deal. And I think he's right about that. Is that now that they've started printing again, is that we might actually get an upsurge.
Peter, you're absolutely right. That is a huge deal. I think it's game changing, and I think they were fools for ever.
Why didn't they sell their fucking rights to CCP? Why?
I mean, so to be fair, they drove a dump truck full of cash up to their houses. They're not made of stone.
Oh, okay.
Hey man, they just read the same writing on the wall that WotC did, where everybody was like, "Hey, look, it's gonna be computers from now on, guys. Role playing's over. It's gonna be computers." And White Wolf was like, "Oh, great, we'll just make an MMO." And WotC was like, "We'll make a tabletop game that's an MMO."
And it turns out no one gave a shit about that.
Nobody gave a shit about it.
It's Fortnite now. Everybody wants Fortnite. They don't give a shit about characterization. They just want cool skins and funny guns and vividly colored animation.
I feel you. And I was looking forward to a new Vampire game.
We probably could. I mean, all right. So to be fair, they turned World of Darkness into a wrestler. And an Aaron Spelling TV show. There was never this period where there was this integrity, this lie of, they always had this artistic vision. That's never true.
That's bullshit.
They were always trying to sell out. They were always trying to sell out as hard and as fast as they could.
Oh, yes, the hell they were.
Know, Adam.
Who are you specifically? Like, maybe Mark Reinhagen, but during that, like, Achille and that era, they were trying to sell out as hard and as fast as they could.
And they didn't care because they knew that the shit was about to go sideways. And Justin Achilles, actually, he's been on the show. He's a good guy, don't get me wrong, but he is also more than willing to admit they were trying to sell out as quick as they could.
I don't have any problem with Justin, but he's a marketer. You know what I mean?
And that's what he did. That's what
that's
he does.
His job. First and foremost, he was a marketer. He was not the creator. He was not a guy who was primarily interested in the story or the aesthetic or anything. He's a marketer. And to his credit, he was very good at what he did.
He was good at what he did. And even nowadays, he's actually still very good at what he does. Because I fucking kickstarted Prince's Gambit, no shit.
There you go.
Okay. And I'm super tickled. Now, the rules might be a bit more intricate than most folks are willing to deal with. But anybody who's played Jihad knows that, 30 to 60 minutes seems short to us. You remember, right? You guys played Jihad, right?
I played, I played that, and I played their Prince of the City board game. I love Prince of the City. It's a great board game.
Oh, I haven't tried that one yet.
Still want to find one.
It's a really fantastic board. Yeah, it's expensive.
Oh, okay, that's what it is. All right,
but it's a great board game. It's a lot of fun.
But Jihad took us 4 to 6 hours, give or take. Depending on your intoxication levels?
Brendan, you were more of the Jihad player than I was. You can answer that.
I remember it.
And I absolutely refuse to call it Vampire the Eternal Struggle. It will never happen. Don't even bother.
I recall it taking like 2 to 3 hours. But
depends on how high you were.
Yeah,
I think it depends on how good of a player you were sitting next to. Like, if somebody knew what they were doing, then they could tear you to shreds really fast. It was
I got bounced out always pretty early.
Did you? How bad did they hate you, dude?
Well, my problem was I tried to play it as a narrative game. So when I would sit down, I would put a 10-cat vampire out, and then I'd get a sport bike, and I'd go, well, a 10-cat vampire clearly is not going to know how to use a sport bike, right?
No.
Because he's an elder, so I'm not going to give it to him. I'll give it to the 1-cat. And a submachine gun. The 10-cat vampire is not going to know how to use a submachine gun. He's not going to know what a submachine gun is. I'll give that to Smudge the Ignored. And so I had this idea in my head that what I was playing was a narrative experience, when in fact what I was playing was like, fuck you rules.
Yes. I mean, vampire. Listen, Dragon's Best shotgun, Adam. the what is it called? The ivory bow. You know, listen, y'all. This was a game of a bloodbath. This was not political, and they tried to play it off that way. They really did. But I've got news. This was all about killing this brother to your left as quick as you can.
And that is forever my problem. Because I have this narrative urge or drive or whatever inside of me that says, oh no, I have to play it the right way.
What right way? I still don't get it. I'm like, okay, you actually have the ability to attack across the table, but most folks went to the left or to the right, depending. And
what I'm saying is, if I have this vampire who's incredibly potent, he's incredibly capable, he's an elder, he's not going to wear a leather jacket.
No,
he's not going to
there won't be no trench coats and katanas.
What are you talking about, man? Lombok wears a leather jacket.
Right, and that's the issue that I had, was I was like, I could never break out of that thinking. I was so caught up in, well, on the card.
Yeah. Like,
Lombok wears a
it sounds like you would play
awesome.
Rage or Arcadia more than
I did, and I played a lot of Rage. I really liked Rage. But yes, you are absolutely right. I wanted to play something that was thematically kind of aligned with how I envisioned that universe.
Yeah. By the way, New Wave, one of our very, very vocal and/or, how should I put this, solid listeners said, and I quote, wait a minute, hold on, where was it? Hold on.
Is this part of the quote?
No,
Okay.
no, hold on, no. It was, she did finally get her Princess Gambit cards, but she was, in general, it seemed, prior to now, that she was more inclined to play the pen and paper than a card game.
Oh, well, yeah, for sure. I think if you have a choice between the card game and, like, tabletop RPG, obviously.
But I'll be honest, man, some card games we tend to be a bit more militant about. We try to, I'm more than happy to play tabletop all day long. I really am. But sometimes the storyteller is not up to par.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess to kind of draw things back to, like, Wraith.
Yeah, go back, dude.
Go.
Go.
White Wolf podcast.
Oh, I know.
Get sidetracked. We do. We change it all the time.
The cosmology of Wraith is really muddled. Particularly when you start bringing in things like Demon, the Fallen, and Mage, and other things like that.
I'm a big 5 person. It's like, no, Demon, get back into the ground. I'm not ready for you yet.
So I mean, like given that, how do you rectify the Neverborn and the Onceborn and like their place in the labyrinth and how they interact with the rest of the world of darkness? How do you contextualize them if you don't use Demon to do it?
Well, I tend to.
Because they're the driving influence of Specters, right?
I draw from some. I pick out some story ideas from Werewolf in that sense.
Okay.
For like
Werewolf, really?
So you think they're like worm creations, or
Labyrinth, Malpheus,
for Wraith?
There's
so
realms.
the Vein of Stare is like the Black Spiral, or
the BS.
Also, I'll just go through those books.
I get.
Yeah, I'll go through those books and pull stuff to flesh out, the the cosmology for Wraith, because it didn't get so much love in the writing phase. And there was all that, oh, does this cross over, does this not? And it's like, it does get muddled. So instead of, I'll go pick out things that are clear from some other system and port them into Wraith to fill out and bridge those gaps.
Okay.
And whenever I'm dealing with crossover and you're looking at like spirit realms, I mean, there's what, chimera and gafflings and jaglings and whatever the mages call them.
Right.
I always give them the example of one man's shit is another man's crap is another man's poo.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all the same. It's all different names for the same dang thing. So I may as well just run with what someone else has written out better and just give it a new name.
So one of the things I've kind of like pushed on or twisted on, especially recently or thought about recently, is the Nephandi. Do you need them? Are they just a subcult of the Euthanatos? And what if the Neverborn or the Onceborn are just Euthanatos masters?
Show.
Right? Like what if the Euthanatos are the masters are just the Neverborn? What if they're the ones just kind of dragging everything towards entropy?
I went the other way with the Euthanatos. I attached them to the Ferryman.
Wait a minute! Hold up. My favorite group in the fucking of the Wraith is the Ferryman.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm big fun with those guys.
Zimbabwe and their cycle pumps. It's all about moving the ghosts on to where they're supposed to be. Dude, Ferryman. And then I take the Nephandi and the Infernalists and twist all that towards the Nephrax. I mean, because there's also that attachment when we got onto the Nephrax. Wasn't there something about the Ferryman when they reach that point to become Ferryman, they have to sever their shadow, and that shadow becomes a Nephrax?
Yes.
But that's only in Ends of Empire, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
So Ends of Empire crammed a lot of detail into a book that has a very poor binding that constantly sheds pages.
But the Ferrymen, in general, are probably one of the most powerful beings in Wraith.
Well, maybe aside from the Memnoi, right? The guys who carry Charon's memories around for him.
Yeah, but even then, you still have the ability to traverse the maelstrom without fear.
Specters have that ability.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. But what I'm saying, even Specters don't fuck with Ferrymen.
Yeah.
I mean, don't they?
No.
No,
they don't. Because they got better sense.
Yeah, they have tempest weaving. I mean, they can weave, they can traverse maelstroms and Niles and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I really feel special rules for that in Ends of Empire. And like you said, it crams a whole lot into one small book. And there were hints of that early on. Like if you take the third book, we did a podcast episode on this for the Midnight Express, the eponymous Midnight Express episode, and it mentions Ferryman there. And how the Ferryman, weirdly decided to, use a train instead of a reed boat and traverse the Oblivion. And that's a very early book in the series. That's like number 3.
Second edition really starts talking about the Ferryman early on because there's the NPC character, the character in all the fiction. I think it's John, right?
Yeah, it does mention him more in second edition, but that first one, the conductor is a Ferryman.
Right, but he eventually
is a ferryman.
But he eventually becomes a ferryman throughout the progression of the series. And I really feel like Wraith in general is kind of leading you on towards that. Like, hey, if you're going to run this game, this is kind of the arc that you should be aiming for.
Yeah, but that's the way games are supposed to not be. I mean, like, if you want something different, then you do something different. But the Ferrymen, as far as Wraith are concerned, I've always assumed were, deputies of Charon himself. So therefore nothing in the Shadowlands can hurt them. Or
they're as close as you can get to a heroic character in Wraith.
Yes.
They gotta
which
give
is
you-
why I don't find them compelling.
At least, well, think of it this way: in this whole system of the big Great Book of Depressing, they've got to have some sort of bits of hope, and they really skipped around in the entire series with that protagonist that eventually kind of becomes a ferryman. It's not sequential. They mention him in like maybe 4 or 5 books out of the entire thing.
He's in Midnight Express.
Yes, he is.
yes,
Because he's
he
playing the
is.
card game.
Yeah.
And he's wagering his soul. And
But
he's in
before
a
that,
number
you
of the
get
books.
Love Beyond Death, and then
Right.
he shows up in like maybe 2 more before Ends of Empire. But the point I was trying to make about Midnight Express was the rules are you do not fuck with the Midnight Express. It exists outside of the hierarchy's rule, period. And the conductor, which is a ferryman, keeps the peace. Now you can, attack each other and have a running gunfight through the entire train if you need to, but ultimately you cannot damage the train.
No.
And you cannot interfere with where the train goes. So trying to hijack the thing
train is
just not
going
gonna
where
work.
it's going to go when it goes there.
Yeah.
And
So that gives you a taste from early
Yeah.
on in book 3 just how much power a ferryman has. Just one controlling
they are
that train.
super fucking powerful. And oddly enough, as far as the splats are concerned, the ferrymen give me the impression about the most powerful even NPCs that can be had.
Oh, I don't know. I'd give that to the antediluvians. Like
That's I don't know about
Again,
that.
ferrymen
Well,
ferrymen can't escape that system, though.
No.
They're only going to exist there. So
right, and that's why I feel like the antediluvians are more powerful, right? Like they can affect.
But even
the
the
whole world.
antediluvians can't be. Listen, you can't PC them. You can't.
You can't. They don't bother
No.
statting them, and that to me tells me a lot because they statted that Euthanatos master in Horizon, who eventually at the end, one of the ends of the mage line was he drags everything down. Then Nefandi all decide to follow him, and he destroys everything. Right, which is kind of why I go, do you even need the Nefandi? If the Nefandi end up following a Euthanatos master from Horizon, are they necessary? Are they
You
a
should have
subclass?
been here for the Nefandi Marauder show.
I think
Right.
it was
Really
a
should
mistake for
have.
them to put stats on the masters of the.
I think it was too. I
I
agree.
mean, and they because they didn't do that with the antediluvians, and they didn't do that with the ferrymen, and that was smart because those were always supposed to be kind of like, I mean, dare I say it, like Deus Ex Machina.
Yes.
Yeah.
Characters.
Yes.
Touch them, you die.
That they were characters, but they were like plots in and of themselves. They weren't really like.
There
oh,
should
here's
never
some
be a
dude.
ferryman as a PC. Period.
Yeah.
Right.
So
The
they-
instant you
they
stat
did
a
do that.
character, somebody
They
finds
did
a way
do
to
that
kill
in
him.
Ends of Empire, but again, that was the last book, which changed everything that was probably going to happen in the meta plot. So the statting ferryman only happened at the very end, but up until that point, they were, like you said, the plot device, really, Deus Ex Machina.
Yes. And oddly enough, that's all you really need as far as the ferrymen are concerned, is to have them be PCs to take X to Y.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So you don't want them, trust me, they're way too fucking powerful to be used as a PC, period.
Mm-hmm.
Even
yeah, but I mean, who would use them as a PC? I mean, it's just
there
kinda
have
like,
been folks.
There's some guy out there.
Yeah, there's
like-
some folks out there. No, there's even folks who want to use the lords and ladies. The smiling lord, the
right.
the
Yeah.
laughing.
No.
The Death Lord.
Yeah, they
Or
want to
ladies.
use them as PCs, and I'm like, no, this
Look.
is not gonna
Didn't they
work.
start getting into like weird stuff at the end of like the run where they were kind of like trying to reveal that a bunch of these characters that everybody had thought were kind of like omniscient power characters were in fact just like very, very low level.
Yeah, Book of
Min-maxers.
Legions got into a lot of that. It's what I will say is if you want to run those characters, if you want to play a ferryman, if you want to play one of the one of the Lords of Legions, if you want to play one of the founders of the guilds, I'm not really interested in that. Like I don't want to tell you your fun is wrong.
Okay, there is only one of those that I would disagree about. Was the Lord that is in actual control of the Soul Forges. Other than that, no. You don't get to play the Smiling Lady. You don't get to play all that other crazy ass bullshit. Keep your masks to yourself, and let's do this the way that we're supposed to do this. And from what I've read of Wraith, they don't expect you to, how should I put this? They should, the Lords and Ladies shouldn't be PCs. Period.
Wraith is not a power fantasy.
No, it isn't.
It's the opposite.
Not even close.
That's kind of what you have to accept going in. You have to buy in going in that I'm not playing a power fantasy. And if your players are not willing to sign off on that,
then play Vampire. I got better things to do with my time.
Like White Wolf PCs would be better about that whole understanding the difference between the power.
They're not.
They're often not.
Yeah, no, it's like Beckett.
They're sometimes the worst.
It's like Beckett. No, you don't have any business playing him as a PC.
No, I agree with you, and so
what if I'm Beckett's child?
Okay, his child, no problem.
I'm kidding. It's a joke.
No, his child, no problem. I got that. But you cannot play Hazimel. You cannot play Beckett. You cannot play Hartstadt the Elder. You cannot play any of those people as PCs. It's not going to work.
High King David.
Huh?
I was thinking High King David.
Okay.
Right, Lord Albrecht.
Love in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're gonna start talking about vampires, like, come on.
That's what I'm most familiar with. I'm sorry. Listen. I've been playing Vampire for a very long time, and the show here has actually taught me a lot about some of the other. How should I put this? Some of these other high-level characters. And like Hartstadt the Elder. I did not know Hartstadt the Elder and Hartstadt the Younger was the same person. Until I started doing this show.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I find out, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, this ain't going to work out. You cannot do this. This is OP and you're done. Mm-hmm. But I try very hard to give balance to the whole situation. And
on that vein, then, isn't there like in Spectre? Isn't there like these like they don't actually give them names, but they do say that there's people in charge. The once born or the never born are in charge, but they kind of
they give them names in Doomslayers.
Yeah. Okay. Here's another one.
It's like that seems like another thing
Sasha
that
Vikos.
not be claimed.
Right. Yes. So Sasha Vikos. Right.
Sasha Vikos. She is not, or he, depending on what day it is.
The time, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Is that is not a PC.
No, it's not. And so I guess that gets back to my first question is, given everything we've kind of discussed in Wraith and talking about how we haven't really had successful Wraith games, is Specters, or are Specters, a playable character? Given all the baggage Wraith has, given all the things we've discussed, given all of the power and everything else.
I think you can. I honestly do believe you can.
Have you ever heard of anyone doing it successfully?
No, and that's the problem. Is that some folks just don't get.
How many like high level long running Fomori games have you heard about though?
I haven't heard of any Fomori games, and that's the thing where I get into with these Black Dog games is, can you actually play them? Are they playable? Or
I think so.
Are they better served by their parent games or their contemporaries?
To be honest, it's like an extra special version of Shadow. You know? You can actually pull it off, but you got to do it right. You really do.
I want to ask this question of like each of you. How would you play a Spectre game? How would you run a Spectre? Not whether or not you can, just how would you?
Go for it, guys.
Would.
I got an answer, but go for it.
Starting off from the beginning, I wouldn't do it. I would start out as a Wraith game, and if you become Spectres, I guess I would reevaluate from there, but I would never sit down at the table and say, we are playing Spectres, let's make Spectre characters. So I wouldn't do it.
I would say I would sit next to whoever I'm supposed to be spectering and just whisper in their ear the entire time.
So you're playing their psyche. You're not playing the Spectre. You are the Spectre. Yeah. You're playing their psyche.
But even then, that's actually a lot of fun too. Is she's like, all right, here's what we do. We're gonna fuck this person over like this. And
that's not how the psyche talks. That's specifically not how the psyche talks.
Yeah.
The psyche would say, "Hey, what you're doing is wrong. You know it's wrong. You know what you need to do. This is wrong."
I'm trying to go the other direction.
Oh, so you're saying you just run it as a Wraith game?
Yes.
Then so it's not a Spectres game, it's just a Wraith game.
I was just like, you're fucked. So here's what you do.
So you just be playing Shadow.
Yes, I play Shadow all day long. Yes, I would.
You're playing a Wraith, you're playing someone else's Shadow, so you're not playing Spectres.
Well, I don't know. I'm thinking that maybe even that's part of the deal. Is that if you're going to go there, go there.
Go all the way there?
Go all the way there. And just go ahead. Slap him.
So you want the Spectre to have a Shadow?
Yes. But even as a Wraith, you still have a Shadow. But as a Spectre, I assume that you also have a Shadow, but it might be a bit more antagonistic. You know what I mean? So
we heard, how many people we heard from? We've heard from you.
Well, I was gonna say that I would probably just take the opportunity, because we'll be doing a Black Dog game, to do something really, really edge pushy. You know, I like to confront like really, 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 really hard horror in my horror games, and so if I had if I'd taken the time to gather a bunch of people around a table and be like, oh no, we're gonna play one of the hardest horror games that White Wolf ever released, you can just expect something pretty heinous right now. And then I'd probably do something that people would probably consider to be kind of like edgelordy or
I don't know about edgelord, but I get you.
Hey, it's all in the pitch.
I'd probably have a group of specters that were surrounding some kind of porn industry in North Hollywood and trying to convert it into some sort of horrifying factory for despair and
right, a cult, a Spectre cult.
Okay,
yeah, exactly. Or then I maybe I've always wanted to do a game about a school shooter, or a group of school shooters. So maybe like a group of specters that are attempting to make something like that go off. There's a bunch of kids that they have the potential to turn in that direction, and as players, your job is to try and make that happen. Something like that. I don't know. That's just kind of off the cuff. That's
okay.
Just
there's a song
How about you? Did you have a chance to? It was your question, and it's a great question.
I was kind of thinking something like that. That too would be like I would maybe not start them out as all specters, but I'd be like prepping them as like, okay, your race, and these are your shadows, and I might pull a card from the page of Adrian over at Midnight Express and have someone else, not someone playing in the game, but a couple of people who are outside, kind of like LARP style, playing the shadows.
Oh, yeah.
Not someone across the table from them, but someone they don't even really know.
Yeah. Somebody they don't even know.
And then once they all become specters, flip it. Those people are now the psyche who are trying to whisper hope to them. Because I would take that concept of how it says that the specters are constantly in pain. And they're trying to wreak all this havoc and destruction just to get to oblivion where the pain will stop.
Right.
And have those psyches tempting them, going, you don't really do this. If you didn't do this, maybe it wouldn't be as painful. If you came back to being a wraith, it wouldn't be as painful as it is now. And be tempting them not with the horrible things or how it could get worse, but tempting them with peace. It's like, maybe if you didn't do this, or if you really love this person, then you wouldn't do this, and be tempting them back with the promises of salvation, and be running it kind of backwards, Wraith, in that sense.
Well, I think that's a really strong concept because on some level, that's like a very life-affirming concept. It's about like finding beauty and like finding redemption, and so on some level, I think that's actually a very appealing concept.
I think that's kind of what specters.
Because that will probably not work, but you got to give them that carrot to hang out for.
There's an old school song by Don Henley. It's called "The Garden of Allah." And one of the lines in the song is, "I'm an expert witness because I say I am." Okay? And that's one of those things that really strike me as very Wraith-oriented. Is like it, because the song is about the devil. Mm-hmm. Okay? About, I appeared in a cloud of smoke today, and it's just a great song, and it really does. Okay, what's going on?
Oh, sorry, that's my phone.
Call you.
Okay, I'm
that's
sorry.
My phone.
No, it just gives you the even though the quote-unquote devil does not actually appear in any of the White Wolf mythology, I guess is the best way to put it. But
I was Jersey devil, but nah.
Huh?
You got the Jersey devil, but nah.
It shows up in Demon.
Yeah. So my point is that there are a lot of really good mythology in music, especially, that doesn't. Hold on, let me get some water here. Hold on. All right, better.
Yep.
So, the point being is, I guess, and I've spoken to many of the White Wolf hierarchy. Jason Carl, Dana DeVere. And I've discussed with them about, their whole, how do you feel about the way some of the things that you have put out and that might be taken as, how should I put this, anti-Christian, blah, 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 And I'm like, this is not about the Abrahamic bullshit. The whole, I have no interest in your Bronze Age mythology. This is a fucking game. Mm-hmm. Kind of situation. And I was like, you guys really, really, really need to distance yourself from some of this craziness, because back in the day, back when I was still young in the 80s, was that, D&D was considered satanic because of the craziness that was going on at the time. And I'm like, okay, we don't really have that problem now, but your best bet is to try and not put yourself in that position.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, here, you want some suggestions from somebody who lived through that time period? Then you need to not even worry about the Abrahamic religion bullshit. Okay? You want to play vampire? Let's play vampire. You want to play werewolf? Let's play werewolf. But somebody, some crazy bugger is going to come along and go, you're anti-Christian. You shouldn't do these horrible things. And I'm like, you just need to shut the fuck up. Because these people are just trying to sell a game. And the rest of this crap has zero to do with your goofy-ass Bronze Age mythology. Okay? That's just the way I feel about it. And I know I pissed a lot of people off by saying it. I truly am. And oddly enough, I do feel bad about it. But it's not a attack on your religion. It is just us trying to play a game.
Yeah, it's a hypothetical at the very least.
At the very
It's
least.
an idea.
So you're pushing the opposite of DMX.
Yes.
You're saying this is a game.
It is a game. This has nothing to do with your book or whatever.
Well, I mean, right, but at the same time, they did throw a lot of, just given Vampire alone, they threw a lot of Judeo-Christian trappings.
They did.
Yeah.
And so it's one thing to go, hey, it's got nothing to do with that, but the books themselves.
That they put, at least in Vampire, that was like a mythology. It's like even the vampires themselves didn't believe that they came.
Eventually, yes, they did start to kind of.
But they also cut back on that by saying that this may be Abrahamic religion bullshit, but not necessarily.
Yeah, but I mean, they did that, but at the same time, they also were putting out books called Cain's Chosen, right? And there was a very religious aspect to the Sabbat at that time.
True that.
Cainite Heresy, people got cheers about that book.
Right, Cainite Heresy, but yeah, I mean, to draw it back to Wraith. Wraith, of all of the lines, has, until Demon came out, had the least Judeo-Christian kind of trappings about it, right? It was kind of an alternate view of the afterlife, and alternate view.
I wish that they called it like Hell or Sheol or...
Sheol,
Yeah, or some sort of, they kind of mentioned Dante, but at the same time, it's. I think it also underrepresents. Too, it could have drawn from links to like Hellmouths and Erebus, but they avoided the H word.
I think they were kind of terrified because of
what
was going on in popular culture at the time, and I don't blame them for it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
then they skip all that and they go into Demon and they go into like even in Hunter, where it's God-given abilities and it's like, oh man,
True
you
faith.
have to use the G word.
We were in but we were in a different place by the time they put out Demon, culturally.
But at that point we were already hooked. So
right,
you know,
they were moving it into a totally different direction by that point. So I don't know that you can necessarily say, well, they should have done this, they should have done that.
I kind of wish that they did, or at least allowed for supplements. Once they open up the Storyteller's Vault for the Wraith system, I bet there's going to be a whole lot of bits in there that other fans are going to be writing for. It's like, okay, if you want to use the Judeo-Christian,
I hope so. I get the feeling that I'm one of like the last true believers of Wraith, and that there's not going to be a lot.
No, you are not the last true believer.
Oh hell no!
But
let's
okay,
keep drumming up
hold
support
up,
now,
hold up.
still
I've
waiting
got to
for a
run
Wraith 20.
bio break, but you keep going.
Well, let's talk about I want to talk about stuff that inspires you for Wraith. Like I was just looking today at the Wraith 20 at the very beginning, where it mentions like the inspirational books or music that people listen to, and it mentioned a TV show that I thought was so obscure because it's a British TV show and I'm in the States, and it's called The Fades, and it only had one season, but it mentioned it, and I'm like, yay, that was totally Wraith. So
I had not heard of that
you
one.
guys?
Never heard of it.
Go watch it. Go watch it. It's kind of interesting. It's weird, but then again, Wraith is weird.
I mean, to me, the Wraith experience is the music that I was listening to as a teenager. It's The Cure, it's This Mortal Coil, it's Joy Division. It's those type of things, right? There's not really a lot of that like dark, depressing media that gets translated into film and television. And that's kind of what I feel is one of the challenges of Wraith, is just how do you represent that? Like, I'm driven by emotion, I'm an emotional creature, I have these passions, and the world's left me behind. And it's tough. It's a hard thing to represent. It's a hard thing to sell to other people. Nobody wants to watch like sadness all the time.
True, but they do want to play Silent Hill, so go figure.
Right, but I mean, in Silent Hill, you're a hero, right? You're conquering the horde.
Up.
You are, but you're like a hero, and you've got a gun, and you're shooting the weird skinless dog in the face. In Wraith, that doesn't really happen.
Is that Silent Hill? Or
Where the hell did this go? I went to the bathroom. You started talking Silent Hill. What the hell?
We were talking about stuff that inspired us for Wraith.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. and he was talking about music doesn't really translate the imagery well, or people don't want to be sad all the time. And I was like, yeah, but then they go and play Silent Hill, so go figure.
Okay.
Yeah, jump on in if you want to talk about like.
I was just
music that make you think.
No, I was just curious as to. I go away for a few seconds, and then all of a sudden shit just shifted to Silent Hill. And I actually am very fond of those games, by the way. But yeah. I'm more, and I don't know if you guys know about a couple of these new ones coming up. Vampire, Vampyre, on stream, and then Dogma, The Eternal Night, which also is looking to be a fairly decent game, at least from what I've seen.
That Vampire game is not good.
It isn't?
Man. No.
Vampire.
Can you give us a brief synopsis? Or
it's just you don't really get to do a whole lot of vampire stuff. You're mostly just kind of like walking around London, and every so often you like hand out medicine to people, and then like there's just what appear to be scads and scads of vampire hunter dudes, and they recognize you almost immediately, and you got to beat them up. You just got to walk around beating these guys up, and I don't know. It just was like I kept watching my girlfriend play it, and I kept thinking like, well, when is some like serious vampire stuff going to happen? Like, when's there's going to be like a conundrum or like a moral quandary? When are some other vampires going to? I mean, there's like one or two other vampires that interact with you and kind of say, ominous things, but at no point do you have to make like serious choices that are like really like Anne Ricey or anything. They never draw you into like
much better, much worse. Excuse me, much worse than Bloodlines.
I mean, I never really played Bloodlines. It's kind of. I mean,
Bloodlines was bad, but there was definitely better things.
I actually enjoyed Requiem better.
Hmm.
Honestly,
Requiem I saw lots of other people play.
Yeah, I'm actually very fond of Requiem, but all right. So
I just kept like I was watching my girlfriend play, and I kept saying like, well, why don't you turn into some mist and just float past him? And she's like, I can't. And I was like, well, why don't you like command him to let you pass? And she's like, I can't. So it's like anything that's other than like, oh, I beat him up because I'm much stronger than him because I'm a vampire. You can't really
shoot him in the face.
There's some cool stuff in terms of the sound effects are very good, and the locations that are drawn are very very beautiful and like fun to look at. Yeah, atmospheric definitely. And then they have these great sound bites where the guy like eats rats and then he like he's upset with himself, but after you get over the novelty of that, you don't really get out of it what you want to get out of a vampire game.
Oh, okay. Because, to be honest, I have been playing Requiem over the years. I bought it when it first came out. And the new ones that they're planning, I'm kind of curious about. But you're right, Bloodlines was not one of my favorites. I own it on Steam, and I'm like, okay, this is okay and all, but it's not vampire.
Yeah.
It's not what I feel. Huh?
I think Wraith would make a great video game, kind of in the style of
I
Silent
think
Hill.
so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. But the chances of us getting a Wraith game...
Well,
yeah, if they can put out a werewolf game, we're never going to get a Wraith game.
I thought they were doing a werewolf game.
Yeah.
A werewolf game,
They've been doing a werewolf game for like 20 years.
I'm talking about Wraith, dude.
No, they're doing
They're starting over from scratch, and they're trying to put together a team and concepts.
Show them to get their shit together.
But I think overall of all the systems, I think Wraith would make a better style of video game, and not an MMO kind of thing, but a video game
just like Bloodlines or Redemption. I could do that.
Maybe more like along the lines of like, kind of like more like a Silent Hill or a BioShock, where
I know I love me some BioShock, girl.
I mean, you can just borrow those kinds of engines, but plaster in your.
Since we're in our last 10 minutes, are you more BioShock or are you more Infinite?
Maybe BioShock.
I don't know. I like
BioShock was the first one that I played.
I'm actually very fond of Infinite. I really am. I don't know why, but I do. I guess it's the sunlight. It's like, fuck this underwater bullshit. And shit just jumping out at you at no random, at all these random times. But I'm oddly enough, I'm very fond of Infinite.
Yeah. I think back in the day, maybe Wraith couldn't really hold a candle to that, but there's so many horror game genres out there right now that it's hard to find something that kind of is unique. And I don't know if any of you guys ever played, like, the Darkness game.
No, I haven't heard. I played it. I've heard it, but I haven't played it.
Yeah, there's, like, a point where the main character goes to hell and is wandering around there, and I've only seen, like, bits of it, but that setting looked really neat, and that I wanted to pour over for like try and get some screen caps or something
Uh-huh.
for if I run a Wraith game and say, well, you want to know what the place looks like? Here you go. But it's like the trenches of World War II. It's like, I'm not really running Great War, but it'll be in my folder in case I ever do
this.
Yeah. So the darkness, I mean, all these video games have great themes, but they only do it in parts. So if we collected all these parts, like, the kind of enclosed sense of BioShock or some Fallout, but without, like, opening it up too wide, like Assassin's Creed or something crazy like that.
Yeah. No, I feel you there.
You got all these wraiths. You can use any time period. It's gonna be great.
So okay. That would be fun, actually, I think. So if anybody has any plugs, we're getting close. So please put them out so we can get you hooked up with some other listeners.
All right, sure. So if you want to get in touch with Full Metal RPG, we've got our Instagram, Full Metal RPG. We've got Facebook. You can search for Full Metal RPG. You can find us at fullmetalrpg.com. We have a Patreon. If you'd like to look at that, backing us, we're going to start putting up actual plays. And then we additionally have our email, fullmetalrpgofficial@gmail.com. So there are numerous ways to interact with us if you would like to do so.
No, I am more than happy to try and, help a brother out as far as this is concerned. As I would like... This is a niche market. Everybody in this channel knows it. Okay? We are really trying, now that White Wolf is full on again.
It's rising from torpor.
Yeah, they've risen from torpor. Thank you very much. But I want you guys to check these guys out. You really should. Yeah. Now, my show is my show, but I think these guys should, get some love too. Okay?
Midnight Express.
So please check them out. Okay?
Give us the Midnight Express pitch.
Yeah, totally.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm ill prepared for pitching, but I do know that we have a Facebook page. Midnight Express. Search Midnight Express, even if Chip Fizzlewig pops up instead. We're on Podbean. We have a forum, Midnight Express forums. They don't look as good as they used to because Tapatalk keeps changing the format. But jump in there. We're glad to have you. We're always looking for new people. And although our release schedule has been a little latent lately, again, that's just trying to get everybody on in time zones. And the host is, living on Australia. So.
I've been trying to get Pete on the show. And
Pete, yeah.
So if you can hook us up, I'd appreciate it. To get him on for one of the shows, whatever he feels most comfortable talking about.
Yeah, you guys are more or less on my continent, so I'm glad to jump in, and I'll see if I can get Pete or... Oh man, I haven't heard from Beckett in a long time. We'll just have to touch base. I've got a new rig for a microphone.
You know where to find me, girl. You know where to find me.
Facebook has definitely been helping hook more people up with more podcasts. I've been seeing a whole lot of podcasts out there. So,
I would love to get him on the show. I really would. I just would like to know what show he is most comfortable talking about.
Yeah.
You seem to be great with Wraith, and I think that's awesome because I love me some Wraith, yo. Okay.
I don't want to be typecast too much, but I've been doing the Wraith on Midnight Express. I was doing Changeling. Oddly enough, the games that I got into originally was Werewolf, and currently I'm running Mage.
Okay. So, do you know Victor?
Those are the ones I know most about, but the other ones I've dipped my toes in.
Do you know Victor?
A bit. We've talked.
Okay.
Definitely talked collaborated a bit on notes.
Because he is changeling all day long.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I've been trying to catch up with Arcadia, but it's been so prolific.
I know. This brother's hard to come by. No, straight up, dude. This guy, Victor's hard to come by sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it's not just not just the show. It's that he's traveling a lot for business. Oh, yeah. And I love Victor.
Are brutal on
He's been one of our earliest guests. He's been all very supportive with us, and it tickles me to no end. It really does, especially because he's in love with Changeling as much as I am in love with Vampire.
Well, it definitely could use some cult following there.
Yes. So if you get up with him before I do, and Chip specifically too, because I've talked to Chip. I texted. I should say with Chip, but I'd really like to get him on the show. And I would like to see him,
And Pete.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really good dudes. And, again, it's just that scheduling thing. So.
Yeah, I know.
Someday the stars will align and we'll manage to get some connection going.
I'm hoping you guys had a good time tonight.
I did.
That was what I was trying to accomplish, is that... this is not an interview. This is a conversation. And I wanted to make sure that you guys... And I'm sorry we were so late starting. No, you don't know, dude. I'm going to be honest. You have no idea what I've had to deal with.
That I couldn't get my new mic working, which is kind
of... No, you got your shit together.
Yeah. Well, I got this great mic for Christmas, and I have not been able to get it to work with my system, and I'm resorting to the headset again.
It's the for me it was the ex-girlfriend that was the major issue, and to be truthfully honest, I really wish I had not gone down that road again, and this is again. I fell in love with her during middle school. And then all of a sudden I find out she has a hell of a lot more issues than I expected. I'm not going to go any further than that because that would be rude. But I'm sorry, I truly am, guys, that I was late to do this.
It's all good. We got it crushed out.
And we feel for you, and we hope that you get better, man.
Yeah, take care of yourself, all right?
Yeah, I'm okay for now. So, all right. I would also like to ask that if you guys can pull it off, I would very much like to have you guys on the show again.
Sure.
Because you guys have some of the best conversational skills as far as this is concerned. And I'm thinking Darling there was a bit apprehensive prior to this.
I haven't done this kind of format before, and live. Oh my god.
Yeah, and live. Oh my god. Yeah. But I wanted to try and make you specifically as comfortable as I could.
Yeah, all you guys are real cool,
and I appreciate it. And I
the same.
I
said the same. You guys are cool as well. So
yes. So I want you guys back at some point. So I hope that you guys would be willing to do so.
Email. Hit me up.
Yep. You got us on Facebook and Specters, everybody. Doomslayers in the Labyrinth, Specters. and Wraith Second Edition. That's what you need if you want to do Specters.
I was going to get to you guys in a minute about your plugs, but okay.
No, we did that before.
We did plug. Yeah. We'll have to have a Ends of Empire discussion at some point.
Oddly enough, I've been trying to find a group of people willing to play an End of the World campaign. And I'm kind of curious as to see if whether or not you guys would be happy to do that.
Well, playing it, it's going to come down to scheduling, and I'm usually going to be online, so.
Yeah,
like
I get that part. But
yeah, it all comes down to just time. I'm supposed to be in a online Shadowrun game here starting in August.
Shadowrun!
So I'm pretty stoked for that.
No shit.
Yeah, second edition, no less.
No,
anyway,
hold on.
Get too far off
I'm
topic,
gonna pull up my favorite Shadowrun campaign before I close this out, which is it is one of the coolest Shadowrun campaign or quotes ever. Is that it's just never ever cut a deal with the dragon.
Fuck yeah.
Not wrong.
Yeah. Also, before we closed out, I wanted to mention that your intro music reminded me a lot of like the intro music for Art Bell's Coast to Coast or Ghost.
Really?
When I listened to it, and I was like, well, that seems totally fitting for Spectre.
Yeah. Well, no, that's just and I actually got permission from the band that actually originally did it, that I could use it for our theme song. It's probably one of my oldest MP3s. It's by a band called Roman Empire, and the song is called Alpha Centauri. And you can find one other copy on YouTube.
That's cool.
To get that song. If because the rest of the song, it's all instrumental, but if you really want to hear the rest of it, it's awesome. It really is.
I'm looking that up now. But yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome, darling. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. It's been a good time.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
That's what we hope for.
We'll catch up with you again soon, huh?
Of course. And thank you guys for showing up, dude. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Gotta show up.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
Likewise.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.